Cocaine bust in KwaZulu-Natal that's highlighted the scourge of crime syndicates in South Africa. Police seized over 200 cocaine bricks worth millions of rands at the Dube trade port in KwaZulu-Natal this month. In 2021, nearly 5,000 kilos of cocaine was seized in this country. For more on this, let's speak to crime analyst Dr Chris De Kock. Dr De Kock, a very good evening to you. Good to have your time. So these latest figures from a United Nations agency, how much of what they're telling us is actually new information as far as the movement of drugs such as cocaine through our ports and ultimately to presumed destinations beyond our borders?
Good evening to you and the viewers. Well, you know, the drug trade is very old in South Africa. I mean, it comes from over many, many decades. But I think there was definitely, if we look at the seizures the last few weeks, drug busts, it seems it's on the increase. And with that, together with that, organized crime, all kinds of organized crime is on the increase. And we even find new types of organized crime in the last decade, developing in the last decade, like the building mafia, and on the agricultural side, the avo mafia. And so you find different areas of our life being influenced and being the focus of organized crime.
And where is the bulk of this going? Where are drugs such as cocaine and everything else that's moving illegally through our ports? Where is it ultimately being taken to? Because in one of the United Nations agency observations, they were saying, for example, in this country, while there is a market for cocaine, it's not as large as in other destinations. So, for example, if you've got 5,000 kilograms moving through this country over a set period, it simply wouldn't make sense to say it's moving domestically.
Well, some of it moves to other southern hemisphere countries like Australia, New Zealand, and so on. And then also, you know, sometimes drugs are being taken south but end up in the northern hemisphere. So you take the drugs to, say, for example, South Africa, and then take it to Europe, because maybe people in Europe doesn't expect drugs to originate from South Africa. Like cocaine comes from the northern South American countries like Colombia, Venezuela, those countries. It then can be taken to Africa, to the west coast of Africa, and from there even to here, and then to the destination of Europe. That's very difficult to monitor, but that is what can happen because they don't expect that amount of drugs to come from South Africa. But I must also say, I think we are also a big market. And then there's Australia and New Zealand.
How much of the vulnerability that our ports clearly have for the movement of drugs is due to corruption? By that I mean port officials, for example, being paid to look the other way.
Yeah, well, that's very difficult to answer. But in all of the drug trade, when we look at the organized drug trade, corruption can be at every level. The police, the officials at our harbors, the officials at our airports. It can be everywhere. I mean, these people can put a lot of money in front of an official which earn maybe a very low salary. That money can be more than the salary that this official or this police officer is earning. And that is in all spheres of organized crime. I mean, we are talking of a multi-billion-dollar trade here.
Right.
And that is why they can put a lot of money in front of an official to look the other way.
Would increased surveillance at our ports help to deal with this sort of crime? Because in the Durban incident, for example, where they found this large stash of cocaine, it was said that some of it was put in meat boxes. So the unknowing person would have just assumed that, okay, it's meat being taken abroad or wherever.
Yeah, they usually hide it in all kinds of things, from car parts, lorry parts, tractor parts, in food. This is a very old tendency. So it is very difficult to identify. But actually what they should do is to make use of dogs, sniffer dogs, to check the cargo, especially if the cargo is offloaded in South Africa. And those ways they can identify these things. They should do spot checks, and then they will find it. The other thing that is very important when it comes to the drug trade is that your intelligence should be at a very high level. You should have information, you should have informants in the drug trade, in the syndicates, to give you information. That is very important. If you don't have intelligence, your chances of winning any area of organized crime is going to be very low. You have to identify the people, the role players, and how these role players work together in syndicates and groups.
Would I be right, Doctor, in saying an investment then in more investigative work is also required in order to intercept, if you will, these drugs as they come in, versus a point where, as they're about to be taken elsewhere, then someone somehow makes the discovery?
Yeah. No, more investment in intelligence and in investigation is important. And we have just heard that in the last week or two that the minister referred to the loss of investigators, a terrible loss, and the National Commissioner referred to that. And that is a terrible loss. And then we also know, about a year ago, there were a lot of question marks on crime intelligence as well as the SSA. It seems, if I look at the cash in transit situation in the last 2 months, and then now these drug busts that we found in the last week, that it seems that crime intelligence and maybe SSA is getting their act together.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Chris De Kock, criminal expert, speaking to us on News at Prime. Thank you for your time.